just using a H-type aerial. The others later were modified with 3 beams on and even a trap on the back that the signal went the way we wanted it, not anywhere, so to speak. And it was exciting.
For good reception, VHF transmitters need to be sited on high ground. Places such as Epsom Downs, with its spectacular views over London, made an ideal site for an aerial. Better still was the nearby village of Headley, which at 600 feet is higher than Epsom Downs, and its dense woodlands with many tall trees allowed a makeshift aerial to be erected with little chance of being disturbed by anything greater than a fox or deer. The crew of the London transmitter of independent radio made copious use of locations on the North Downs for their transmissions. Soon, programs could be heard 4 evenings a week, KFM on Thursdays, Radio Aquarius on Fridays, Jackie on Saturdays, and Sundays, perhaps the most creative of the LTIR stations, Radio London Underground, or RLU. Originally a program broadcast by Radio Jackie's VHF service, in 1971, RLU gained its own spot, courtesy of the London transmitter of independent radio. Its eclectic programs were produced by Richard Eland and Peter Carvine.
AM was, to me, restricting because of its relatively poor technical abilities, the poor bandwidths and so on, and of course the noise and interference. I was always interested in much higher quality. Ideally stereo. But of course, out of all this eventually comes the sort of cooperative effort of stations coming together using combined transmitter, if you like, or facilities. So the smaller stations like I set up eventually with Richard, RMU, we could, having the staff of only 2, we could produce, make and record programs and have them put out. Whereas to do it ourselves would not have been very easy to do at all.
I was involved with Jack FM and the London Transmitter Independent Radio. This would presumably have been around about 1970-71. One day, a gentleman turned up at one of the transmission sites and introduced himself to me, and he was one of the people who were doing hospital radio in South London, a studio once a week. And I got brought along to meet these people, and one of whom was Pete Carmine. And we became friends immediately with lots of common interests, and particularly in broadcasting and audio in general. In fact, Peter taught me a lot of basic recording techniques, which stood me in good stead when I entered the recording industry a few years later. So what came out of that essentially was a very interesting collaboration on Peter's studio in South London, and we started doing programs together, and thus I would think sometime in 1971 Radio London Underground was formed, and we did a nominally, I think, 2-hour program on Sunday nights, going out on 94.4 FM through the London Transmitter Independent Radio.
Where many pirates' programs were of a dubious standard, RLU set their sights higher.
To me, the production value was important. Playing music was peripheral in the sense we weren't just there to play one record linking to another. We were there to produce a program format. Of course, each program that RLU put out was unique to its own. But we would never know, because Richard could turn up with a bunch of records and say, hey, I've got these from whatever, Virgin Imports or something. And we'd sort of scatter around the floor and say, okay, let's go. And the program would just come together.
One of the things that we did try to do was to go beyond just playing music. Although we got a reputation for playing a very eclectic selection of pieces of music, there was a lot more we wanted to do, and what we started doing was to rebroadcast significant pieces of radio drama, and the one that's probably particularly best known is BBC's 1967 version of War of the World. So we started broadcasting this one episode a week, and I think they were half-hour episodes. We actually got a letter from the producer who was really pleased to hear this had gone out, and telling us that as far as he knew, the original recordings were lost.
RLU broadcast programs for 18 months until Christmas 1972, when they voluntarily ceased transmissions.
We decided to close down because Firstly, I'd been busted myself, not specifically for broadcasting, but for running the lookout radios without a license, which was rather amusing. And also, we were a program production company, is what we were. Peter and I had been going out on transmissions to keep my eyes open for a while, and I think basically being busted made that less interesting. And Peter and I had a discussion, and we felt that it was a bit much to ask all the team on the transmission site to go out there and put the programs out without us contributing to that effort ourselves.
With the pending launch of commercial radio in Britain, the London transmitter of independent radio also called it a day, leaving others to keep the free radio flag flying on VHF. One of them was soul specialist Radio Invictor. Founded in 1970 by ardent soul music fans Tony Johns and Peter C. Crispian, Radio Invictor was widely recognised as Britain's first soul music station.
That's right, this is Radio Invictor, your midnight soul station. We broadcast Monday to Friday from 11:30 till midnight on the frequency of 92.4 MHz VHF.
Invictor broadcast in South London throughout the 1970s and early 80s on 92.4 MHz VHF, using home-built 100-watt transmitters. The station's early transmissions